Hello, welcome to the Civic Technology Seminar of Busan. In this occasion, we have Cassie Jiun Seo, a consultant at World Health Organization, and I invite her to talk about tech and innovation in the humanitarian setting. Some years ago, I was in a machine learning conference, and they were talking about how in Stanford Hospital they were introducing AI, and as they were selling this product, the director of the hospital mentioned that most hospitals in the world cannot really afford to have these technologies. And that made me thinking about how can we use all of these interesting technologies in places that doesn't have the means or are not ready for this technology. Another example that comes to my mind is there is this woman in Mexico. They go to the desert looking for missing bodies of people. And something that they told me is that they have been using drones nowadays to optimize their work. And so I was looking for a way for examples or ideas in how can we use the technology that we've been discussing in this seminar, in developing countries, in situations where they are not necessarily ready, where maybe there is no infrastructure. And for that, I think it will be really convenient to talk with Casey because she has been working in similar areas. So, Casey, thank you so much for coming today. And could you tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing?
Yes, happy to. Thank you so much for having me here today, Eric. Yeah, so I like to introduce myself as a public interest technology expert or specialist. And then at the moment, that had led me to work as a digital health and innovations consultant at the World Health Organization or WHO. Previously I was head of unit, so that's like a team lead at one of the larger international NGOs named the Norwegian Refugee Council, which specialized in sort of like humanitarian and conflict-based emergencies to protracted crisis. So yeah, there I was leading digital transformation team. And yeah, and then I also had joy of supporting a couple of other organizations at the intersection of, I'd say, social impact or public goods and technology, which includes GitHub and several federal governments. So yeah, really excited to be here.
So, could you share us some examples to start about the work that you'll be doing, like how the technology can be used in a humanitarian sense?
Yeah, very happy to. So yeah, so how I would look at it is that technologies in the humanitarian setting, it's probably falls into four different categories.
Mm.
So first is more about I'd say improving the organizational efficiency. So yeah, so this could be a very specific to humanitarian use case would be things like fleet management. Like there's a lot of this Land Cruiser, very specific cars and humanitarian air shuttle because normal airlines do not operate in certain conflict zones and such. So there's a lot of technology to manage much of this operational internal sort of operational efficiency. And then sometimes a lot of these technologies are same as anywhere else.
Mm.
It could I would also put things like Microsoft Office suites in there, like emails, all those things. So more internal step facing. And then another category is of course the affected population facing. And then that's more in the I call it service delivery of the humanitarian operations. Um, so yeah, so very like pertinent examples there would be we instead of like um like a provisioning or handing out like food to people, now like much of the operation is cash based,
Mm,
so we send cash to people. So yeah, so that banking infrastructure or payment infrastructure is like another example, and then
mhm,
that's more of a like affected population or aid recipient facing. And then another example is more on the, I would think, as in like analytics or like data related thing. So another like really big role of humanitarian organizations are actually like data collection and like monitoring, evaluation, like
mm,
research sort of thing about like what's happening on the ground right now. Like what's the scope of the damage to
mhm,
people? Like how, yeah, what's the situation like? And then of course a lot of people are very tempted to use this as a like sort of anticipatory action or
mhm.
all sorts of yeah models and such. Um yeah, and then like that's one of the use cases of technology. And then last but not least, I put it in a sort of like a different category, although it's like very similar. It's I would like think of it as like I would think of it as like some sort of like data pipeline with like open data in the world to make their operations better. So while, yeah, the third example that I mentioned is more like the data that they publish, so
Mhm.
outbound, and then fourth is like more like inbound. And then much of this is sometimes like what other humanitarian organizations publish. A lot of these are also just like open data. Um, and then, yeah, to see what I saw most of that example was like more on the climate change, like resilience prediction, like that sort of thing. Like yeah, what's the likelihood of a cyclone hitting this area, and then yeah, what how like how many people would be affected.
And could you
Mm-hmm.
give us an example of the challenges that you face in your work?
Yeah, so yeah, so I would like think of it as a like a generic challenge and a more like specific challenges.
Mhm,
So the generic one, that's like it's not a tech company, and then it's not meant to be. So the generic one is really like convincing the stakeholders that are often very excited about utilizing technology because they interact with technology
mhm,
mainly as like consumers.
mhm,
So they, for example, see what like how ChatGPT writes their email. So they get very excited. Oh wow, like could we apply this to like everything that we have and be more efficient, like deliver better, like all those things. Um yeah, so I'd say like, but I don't think that's any new challenge. Like that's something that anyone who works with let's say non-tech organization might face, and then and I have no problem like sort of informing people like or helping the senior leader, advising the senior leadership so that they can make better, more informed decisions. Like I have no quarrel with that. um and then I'd say like another challenge is of course the this is the area where, let's say, like geopolitics of technology becomes very more pronounced than, let's say, like other sectors. So one of which like is the sanctions, like yeah, by the let's say like the US government. There are like sanctioned countries like you know that being like Iran, Syria, previously Sudan, and yeah, and then those are some of the places where our main operations happen. So there, the practical issues, like we cannot bring in any technology like usually from outside. So you cannot like use like your Microsoft Word, like Outlook, Google Drive, like all those things. And then much of this also applies to hardware. So yeah, so much of the technology procurement happens like in country, and then also like being really, I'd say, like strategic about like what to use, and then which like technology is not affected by the sanctions and such. Another is of course the
Before moving, I just want to emphasize that you go to these places trying to help the local population, but because of
Mhm.
politics, you cannot just use the normal tools that could help the most, that you need to find out ways around or other technologies that could help, but
Yeah.
they are not as efficient as the popular ones, I guess, or like,
Yeah, it's not as well known, right? So yeah, how many of us like know about the um like alternative to like Google Drive?
yeah, yeah. Okay. I
And
just
then
wanted to emphasize the difficulty of this.
yeah, and then people like can probably name like several, right? Like oh, I know Dropbox, I know Box, I know this, and they'll be like, yeah, like tell me one um company that doesn't have a subsidiary or incorporation in the United States.
Mhm.
Yeah. Then like people usually aren't able to really name those,
Interesting.
like
Yeah.
uh, yeah, like with something that we use all the time, like take it for granted, like Google Drive. Yeah, so then it's like, okay, so when that infrastructure doesn't exist, like how are we going to share files like with staff?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and then some other things are, I would say, around like product safety or the tech safety type of things.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of this, not the, a lot of several countries like that we work in that are, let's say, like in humanitarian crisis situation, um, often have let's say like more regulations on internet. So we see a lot of like internet shutdown. We see a lot of like controlled access to certain like websites, let's say, or services on internet and such. So yeah, so that's another thing. And then there's like more infrastructure, or I would call it even like hardware related challenges, like sure, like connectivity. It's like, oh, how do we do this? Like where there's like not as much of a internet infrastructure, and then even more so like electricity infrastructure. So
Oof.
yeah, so I think those are some more like unique challenges.
Yes.
Like started with more like generic one to bit more and more like unique ones.
Um, so, what are some of the most innovative solutions that you have deployed?
Mm. So something that I'm really like excited about has been, so in like my previous organization, we I worked on an app, and then it was actually a program for like let's say like training program for teachers. And then and usually like this trained teachers how to basically how to give psychosocial support to children who has trauma from
Oh,
war.
yes.
And then yeah, so it's a very well-known program, like in cooperations with the University of Tromsø and all that. It's called like Better Learning Program. Not like exactly like a very descriptive title, but that's what it is. And then yeah, and then like they wanted to turn this into an app, or at least like some sort of online like accessible, like that content to be accessible online, like it doesn't have to be an app. And then And then that was like during the time of COVID, and we realized that a lot of people that are not teachers had become teachers, including like parents or
Mhm.
like older siblings. So we actually did turn it into a like let's say like accessible content on internet, and then and we were actually like surprised by the uptake of it. And then like we realized, oh wow, like actually every parents, every like caregivers are very concerned about like this, like how to basically comfort the young people like in their family, like community, classroom, like anywhere. So yeah, so that's it seemed like very minor, like maybe not as like exciting, but this was used very widely in like Gaza at that time. Like yeah. So yeah, so that's and then it was also used like very widely in Ukraine. And this was not like something that we like hand out to people. I mean, it's
Mhm.
like a web app, right? Like or really a website. And but then like we were seeing how a lot of people wanted to access this on their own, and then like realized like yeah, I guess there's not much content out there for
Mhm.
like a very accessible content, like both in terms of cost and also also like how easy to understand it is, and then also in like multiple languages, like in Arabic, like in Ukrainian, like in Russian, how to comfort like your
Yeah.
children that has like a war trauma or like young people. So
Oh,
yeah,
oh.
that's something that that's a project that
Uh-huh.
like stays with me for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit in surprised because all of these projects or ideas are things that I'm not usually familiarized, and I think it's incredible work that you're doing. Um, so let me ask, well, uh, how do you ensure safety or your team in those situations? I mean, I guess it depends of the problem that you are trying to solve, but assume in some occasions you might have to go to dangerous areas. So, how do you ensure safety of your team?
So I think the important thing is first like go with an assumption that we can never ensure it.
Mhm.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. You know, like in cybersecurity, there's this concept of zero trust, and and then that's what I often say about like when we want to utilize technology in this settings, like yeah, just go with like zero trust. Know that it's going to get like compromised,
Mhm.
like even despite of our best intentions. Like and then those things are out of our control. So the like so really important things had been like okay, so since like going with that assumption, then it really informs people like, okay, so do I want to be deploying this technology or do I want to be collecting this data?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, if I go with the assumption that like my database like could be screened anytime,
Um,
yeah,
uh,
some
maybe
like usually.
to provide a little bit of background, in several occasions, there were startups in USA created technology for activists, and later on it was found out that the CIA or part of the US government
Yeah,
sponsored those startups so that they have access to the information. So this
yeah.
has happened several times, and yes, it's hard to ensure safety.
Yeah, so
Um,
it's important to go with like the zero trust assumption about like deploying technology and then and like use it very judicially would be my suggestion. Yeah.
um, the I guess let me see. Um, Actually, I'm not sure if this is, uh, does the technology that you bring have
Mm-hmm.
any problem with the local culture? Do you have any issues bringing this Western technology, or maybe I mean I don't know what are the local cultures, but uh, do you ever have any problem like that?
Yeah, yeah. Less about like Western
Mhm,
less about the culture clash, but what it does is that like I believe now it's less of a discourse, but then I'd say like even just a couple of years ago, many sectors, including the humanitarian sector, thought technology would like democratize access to information and
mhm,
like all the great things like services that we provide. And then and then like it actually doesn't, right? Like so in certain communities it was like very much like, oh, people who have a phone or some kind of device to access like internet were already like the people who are more privileged or
mhm,
have money or whatnot like in that community. And then yeah, and then like in many cases um like a whole family sharing a phone and a SIM card. So if we were to use like some kind of like authentication using, the text SMS or like some sort of that, like it's not really feasible given
mhm.
that like
Yes.
yeah, a group of people are sharing a device or a phone number. So it's not a like a good candidate to use as an identity provider, which like the
Mhm,
I believe the assumption in a more wealthy like countries are like, yes, like your phone, like your data, like it's your like private thing.
mhm.
So yeah.
Um, well, how do you address the long-term sustainability of the technology that you're introducing?
Mm. So unfortunately, much of
Mhm.
the humanitarian like development work happens based on grants. It's very
Mm,
similar to like academia. So believe like one really important thing again is like go with an assumption that like this can be stopped at any time.
oh,
Yeah. Um, but it's a lot more sustainable than like going without that assumption, which I believe like many people like don't.
mhm,
Yeah, so that's so that's already like thinking about the exit plan and like sunset plan like in the beginning. Like as in if we don't continue to get this funded, like this is like how we are going to be like sunsetting this technology.
mhm,
Yeah, and then like going with that assumption, this also informs people what kind of data that they can collect
mhm.
and then what would be useful and helpful. So yeah, I think that's the biggest hardship to
Yes.
ensure sustainability. But this is like really not a unique problem to the humanitarian development field. Like I think it's same in like academia,
Mhm,
um same for any entity except for like governments that that are basically not generating income or
mhm.
profit. Yeah.
Um, eh, so what technologies do you see that could make a significant impact in the future in conflict zones or?
Mhm. Um, I can, I mean, it's a difficult like thing to say, right? Like, because it
Mhm,
depends so much on the sector.
mhm,
It depends so much on the like use case. And then I think a lot in our field, many of the, let's say, technology gets a bad rep because people think it's a solution to everything.
mhm,
Like, yeah, like for example, like blockchain, it was very hot couple of years ago and then like went nowhere. But I think it's really because people try to use this for everything that it may not be relevant. And I'm sure it's the same with like AI. And
It,
then also like what AI, right? Like it's like, are we talking about generative AI? That's what I'm assuming that like when most people talk about that these days. But then even like modeling, I'm like, well, no, it really depends. Like so at WHO, so something like hospitalization rate, which was like something that I was also like part of. Like yeah, it's like usually it's a quite straightforward thing to calculate. Like with model, it's just like using like the LSTM and
Mhm.
then and it's usually like quite straightforward and model that performs like really well. Um like in normal like circumstances. But like with COVID, like it was different.
Um,
So
because the topics that we cover, I would like to make a remark. Uh, when we started to use AI, we were looking for problems to solve, and then we learned that usually that's not the way it works, because if you go to an area where there are already solutions, where there is already experts, and you try to bring a new tool,
mhm.
you might be competing to things that are already effective and just following the fashion. So yes, I understand. It's
Yeah.
especially that now it's true that if you say AI, you get more funding, but it's not meant to solve every problem. Yes.
Oh no. No, and I do think there are probably some like unique like niche problems that still like can be solved with like AI really. But then yeah, but I don't think but I think it's really important that's articulated really
Mhm.
clearly and well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and such. Yeah.
I think it will be a little bit convenient if you tell us a little bit about how you end up in this work, because first of all, it's a very interesting job, but it's also very demanding, and I think it will be very inspirational to know,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
got you into here, and
Mhm. Um, yeah, so I'd say like very much of it was by chance. Um, and also the sort of the timing. Like yeah, because I started really as let's say like more individual volunteer or like activist type of person. As in like I arrived in Germany from the United States like the same time when there were like many people arriving in Germany from Syria
Mhm.
in 2015 or 16. Yeah. Um, so there was a lot of like demand for people to support. So yeah, so that's how I first got like started. I didn't have training in
Mhm.
this. I did work in tech companies in San Francisco Bay Area before, so I knew, let's say like product development process or like engineering process like quite well. But this were not like necessarily companies that were making let's say like social impact related work. So yeah, so it was like first by chance and then it continued. So I first like worked at a German national NGO
Mhm.
for like 2 years and then yeah, and then there learned a lot.
I was gonna ask because it seems like you have to be learning along the way, and when you say that you go to a place and you need to bring a technology, but you cannot use these standard technologies, it's not like there is a catalog of alternatives. You have to go around, look around, investigate
Ye-
by yourself. It's a very interesting job. But that also means the next question I was going to ask is about the background required to do this job. But you say that you were familiar with technology, but there is not really a specific background that made you enter the job. It's more like you were interested in this problem, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was like interested in this problem. and how to like make it better. And then I do think like having a, let's say, mm, more private sector, like technology company experience, it didn't hurt
Hmm.
because it's like sort of knowing, oh, if there's a lot of resources and people, like this is what you can do. Like sort not that like that's the best practice at all, but then sort of that's more resourced practice. Like, oh, like, yeah, here's how you can like really run tests.
Hmm.
Like, this is how many people like have to go in. This is like how long it takes, like sort of things,
Hmm.
right? Like just like being in a um place with like more established procedures for developing, let's say, more like their market-proof technology, because you cannot like ship something and then like it crashes every
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then honestly, that's like quite lacking sometimes in the like humanitarian sector, because it's not like exactly a place where the best like engineers would come.
Hmm. Right, 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 right. There is always this issue, right? The best engineers are in the most
Yeah, yeah,
companies that pay the most, but that not necessarily has to do anything with humanitarian purposes. Ah,
exactly. Yeah. So knowing that like definitely helped. And then also like in the humanitarian sector, you do have to continue working with tech companies, because like a lot of things like we will be using it. Like we will not be built, like for example, like I work quite closely with GitHub
mhm,
while I was at NRC, and also when I had left NRC, like as a independent person.
mhm,
Um yeah, where I worked for GitHub even, and then there, I was like, yeah, no one's going to be developing our own code repository. Like, no one's going to be developing our own like Git-based repos.
mhm.
Like, I think there's like three companies that like does it, like that's widely used, right? Like GitHub, GitLab, like Git, like maybe there's more. Sure, like Bitbucket, like but then that's like no one's going to be developing that product to be used internally, right? Like just the same way that I'm not going to develop my own like word processing tool. Like
Mhm.
yeah, at the
Yeah,
most we're using something like LibreOffice or something like that, but then like 90% of the population will default to like what this product companies
yes.
offer, whether that's like MS Word or Google Docs, right? Like that's like how it will be in Korean, like the HWP. Like but yeah, so that definitely helped, like just knowing how tech companies operate,
Mhm.
and then usually like what their KPI would be, and then like sort of pitching and fundraising from them.
But I'm getting the impression that your work really abarks a lot of different activities. Um, Interacting with the companies. Were you also in charge of getting funding?
Yeah.
Do you also have to go to the danger? I mean, not. I mean, you also have to go to the different areas to see the implementation of the technologies, or were you working from distance and sending the technology? Can you like you were doing
Uh,
all of this?
yeah, so I'd say like I would say that very much of like when people absolutely should be like on the ground is more on the like to make sure that they understand the context well.
Yes.
Yeah, like yeah. And then actually it's much better when it's not someone like me that that lives in Europe does that. Like there are always like people who will know much better than I do about the context and
Mhm,
such, but like what they might not be having are like contacts
mhm,
to, let's say, like this large tech companies that may provide like money
mhm.
or products or like advisory and all those things. So yeah, so I see it like more as that's the role that I was playing, and
Mhm.
like sort of playing even more, like moving forward. Yeah, like admitting like we're probably not the best people to be developing like technology ourselves. Then like what should we be absolutely developing? And then also how do we become more informed consumers of this let's say like technology offerings?
Mhm. Um, could you just
Mm-hmm.
name some of the countries you've been visiting during your work?
Yeah.
Uh, just for.
So I spent like I did like a project in Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine,
Mm,
like 2019, and
mhm.
then again 2022. Um, Same project actually, but
Mhm.
but the context became, or let's say urgency became very different.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then also the movement of the people like became very different from that time. Also the target area became very different.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that's like a one immediate
Mhm.
example, but like probably most pertinent. Other like Uganda, like northern Uganda, like which is um like really beautiful place.
Mhm.
And then yeah, it's hard to like kind of call it all, put it all in like one bucket, because like with Uganda, I explained to people, so for example, Uganda had like accepted more refugees than all of the European Union like combined in like 1 year. So it's like extremely diverse
Mhm.
and extremely like multicolored like society. So I was like, I'm sure even like Ugandan like would not be able to know all the let's say like colors of the country. But yeah, but northern Uganda was at a refugee camp named like Changali, and yeah, again like a really beautiful place, like like nature wise. And then yeah, and then like just really mm, like wonderful in a way, like how resilient people are.
Whoa. Um,
Yeah, those are like places that
uh-huh.
come to my mind like immediately. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then like Ukraine, very much of it was this emergency cash distribution project
Mhm.
that I was leading and like architecting. And then Uganda, this was similar but not like cash distribution, but this was more like we call it like referral. So where people can sort of like refer aid recipient to different like organizations that like run that for different expertise, or I really call it like services.
Mhm. Um, and I'm not sure if you can talk about it, but are you currently participating in a project? I'm not sure if you are allowed to talk about this or if it is convenient to talk about this, but if you are you working in a current project?
In Ukraine right
No, no,
now.
in any project that you are currently,
Mm.
technology.
Yeah, 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 happy to. So now I've shifted like focus to include like both humanitarian and let's say like developing countries.
Mhm.
So yeah, with like World Health Organization, like as part of this like digital health and innovations team, um, we work a lot on like creating what we call like reference softwares to
Mhm.
be used for like let's say like health. um it's almost like I see it as like more like a data repose, or like I think people like to call it infrastructure.
Mhm.
So a lot of examples have been like vaccine registries.
Mhm.
Yeah, like yeah, so it's like okay, what should be the like architecture of that should be like? What kind of like open API protocols should this have?
Mhm.
And then like who should be able to access this? You know, like should all the hospitals be able to access it with both like read and write, like
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, with like permission? How about all the like should this be all hospitals or only like large hospitals? And then like individuals, of course, and then how about like the national health insurance schemes from like vaccine registry? How about the national registries? Like and then about like how about the school registries? Because many governments also have requirement that if you haven't had mandatory vaccination, your child is not allowed in the public school kind of thing. So yeah. So at the moment many governments are um let's say like thinking through that interoperability.
Yes, as a person that was lucky enough to see the so-called first world and the infrastructure and compare to
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure in Mexico, I can see that that makes a big difference. Uh, the Peru problem during COVID is that they didn't have a way to correctly, bring the vaccines around the country in such a way that they are not spoiled by the time they arrive to the area. All this infrastructure is important,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so well, that opens two questions. The first one is if some activist that is listening to this talk would like to participate, where do they apply for for this kind of position?
Um, so for
I mean,
the
just
job,
anybody with technology that is interested in collaborate somewhere, somehow.
mm, I see. Well, I think it really like depends on the expertise,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Of
yeah.
course.
Um, what I've seen a lot of gap, and then what I would really like to see more is the, let's say, more involvement from the people from the security and like cybersecurity, um, like domain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So there is a
Yeah.
need for cybersecurity
Yeah,
experts.
like huge need. Yeah. There's like a lot of other like technical skills that might be like very much in demand, but not as much, like not as much. If I were to do hiring, it's like you know, I think about supply and demand, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So something like data analytics or like let's say data science. Um, well, it's like okay, there's like always like enough supply for demand.
Hmm.
Yeah, but then let's say like cybersecurity, like infrastructure, like yeah,
If
it's
some,
often
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like much higher
Uh-huh.
demand than supply.
Okay. Um,
Mm,
and the next similar question is that if anybody would like to collaborate, but maybe they are not looking for a job, but they just wanna help in somehow. Is there a way to do it? Like to say, oh, every weekend I can do something. Can
mm,
they contact any of these organizations? Or I can also understand that maybe they need somebody full time because they need to they need to give following to the project. They cannot just rely on somebody that might not be available. So, is there an opportunity for people that want to volunteer but have already a job? Is that possible, or is just
yeah,
risking too
so
much?
it's possible, of course. And then of course like very appreciated. Um, but then it's yeah, I think there were several like sort of organized programs that were like supporting that.
Mhm,
Um, let's say people's desire to help
mhm,
with like organizations that are in need. And the reason why organizations are not doing this themselves is because like just like what you just said, Eric, people want to do it and it's extra it takes a lot of effort for
yes.
organizations to onboard these people first like into let's say like infrastructure, like even if it's just like provisioning them like organizational GitHub access to to things like inviting them to the Office like 360 like identity provider so that they can have access to certain where all the like previous documentations are in and all that. And then also giving them context. Because like there's documentation, but no one's going to be reading everything, right? Like
Yes,
people
yes,
are expecting that like someone to brief them. Yeah.
yes.
So yeah, because it's not like you can anyone like can immediately pick up a ticket and like work on it. So yeah.
This
Mm-hmm.
this makes me wonder. You know, these jobs are also very demanding. I don't know what is the exact word in English, but in your experience, the people that work in this area, for how
Mm-hmm.
long do they work in this area? Like, do you see people getting burned out because of the stress and I'm
Mm.
pretty sure you have seen things that you didn't want to see. Is this a big problem in this kind of jobs?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like burnout is high. Um, and then a lot of times I bet a lot of people think like, oh, I could be going and working in any like private sector and then make a lot more money, for
Mm.
example.
Yes, I
Yeah,
know that feeling. I know that feeling.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I, as an
So
activist, we all have this issue where we have dealing with hard problems. We do everything we can. We solve a problem. You're like, oh, but a company could have paid us way more for this. Yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, all of this are true, but then I'm also like, no one's forcing you to work on it,
Right, right, right.
For well, it's like academia
Yes,
jobs, right?
yes,
Like,
yes,
as
yes.
in, especially people in like technology type of thing, and in academia,
Uh,
I'm like,
uh,
yeah,
and then
we
you
all know.
think that yes, you do this, and you woke up, and the product that you did is meaningless versus working in, you do something, and then you discover that all these kids in this war zone maybe they have a better future thanks to the technology that you improve, or somebody was able to survive.
Yeah,
It's a
but
very
it's a
different
but
feeling.
it's a big maybe.
Mhm.
Like as in like does it actually help? I don't think there's enough research or evaluation on whether digital technologies actually help
Oh well,
uh,
that's a very interesting point. Uh-huh.
yeah, aid efficiency or like it definitely helps the organization that's delivering the
Mhm.
aid, right? Like because before we need to hire 10 people to hand out bread, but then now we just like hire I guess like 10 people to develop the payment like technology and then just like send the same amount of money to all the people. Um, yeah, but it's like, okay, but are people happier, like getting money than bread?
Mm.
Like we have a lot of anecdotes and some, yeah, anecdotal like evidence, but not like a real proper empirical evidence, like and is this actually helping to like let's say reduce the number of conflict and the number of
Mhm.
displacement? Like, yeah,
Uh,
we don't, right? Yeah, so that's bit of what it is.
mhm,
Yeah, but just going back to the previous point about
mhm.
the people like getting burnt out and all that. I mean, I really don't like to think of this as a me or anyone else a sacrifice or anything. It's like academic job, for
Yes, yes,
example.
yes.
And anyone can make a lot more money like in the company, but then they stay in academia because there's something that they get out of this that's not money.
Yes.
That might be intellectual stimulation, that might be what is it uh like like a freedom or like bit more independence that like
Um,
some academic jobs like provide, or it could be what is it like that it's more of an influence and like status that like people would not get as a engineer one in a big company, but then like that may get. So I'm always like, look, it's a personal trade-off. Like no one's no one is a saint here. Like people are choosing to do this because they get something out of this that that's maybe not money, and then that doesn't make anyone a better person
mhm.
or Yeah, I don't think so. I'm always just like, yeah, it's a job. That and then in jobs, like not everything has to be paid by money.
Mm.
Like
Oh,
sometimes it comes from satisfaction in different ways.
I guess what the example that I had in mind, uh, for the at some moment I work in in a startup, and there were the cases of people working in the 911 lines, and so
Mm-hmm.
they are trained for 1 month, and once they start working, they receive very extreme sad cases, and so people usually after 1 week of hearing tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, they just cannot handle it because the psychological pressure is too much. And so I guess the question that I wanted to do was, do you think we need some sort of psychological support? Like, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know that we need cyber security, but can psychologists also offer help
Oh yeah, yeah,
to the
yeah,
people working in this? Like, that could also be another way to contribute, like just helping
yeah,
the people.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, so usually a lot of these organizations will have some kind of a psychological like counseling and options. It goes back to the same thing, right? Like and then almost always like these people were either staff or a partner like contracting agency that offers this sort of like psychologist.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
one because like yeah, people like need to know the context, right? Because
Mhm.
if I'm traumatized and I go into counseling, and then if I spend like 1 hour just explaining to the counselor what I really mean
Mhm.
by like frustration,
Yes,
yeah, like it's tiring, right?
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, yeah. And then like kind of defeats the purpose of what it is. Um yeah, so of course people can like help, but then I say like think about how much you can realistically
Yeah,
commit.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
then
this is
yeah,
a
not
long process, right? Visiting a psychologist takes months. Yes, 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 yes.
yeah. And then I always say for people like with means like money, I say like no, just give money.
Mhm.
Like that's the best thing. Um, for me, preferably not to the UN agencies, like not to large like organizations, but do some research and then like give money to the local organizations.
Mhm.
Yeah, I say like no, like don't give your um like a talent or skills unless it's exclusively asked.
Oh.
Yeah, because usually if they need, like they will like write things, right? Like
Mhm.
we are looking for a volunteer who can do X, Y, Z.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
And this is very important because in a company, you mess up
yeah,
something, okay, the product gets delayed. But here, you mess up something, then the life of a person suffers because they were expecting a solution that
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
arrive.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, because it's like a resource allocation again, right?
Yes.
And then the people who work in this organization, their like attention is also resource allocation because like if they spend 5 hours onboarding a new volunteer who only comes like once, like 1 week,
Yes, yes, that's
yeah,
also
like
a problem.
yeah, like we're not going to expect these people to work 5 hours more, like without going to sleep, right? Like so, yeah. Um, so that would be really like my advice, as in unless it's like explicitly asked,
Mhm.
um like yeah, don't think like they're looking for your talent.
Mhm.
If you really want to help, like give money, and if you have that means, um and then to give money, the ones that are really like on the ground, like in the affected country, sort of like smaller organizations are a good place. If you don't want to do research and don't know, I say give money to Red Cross or Crescent in that country, not the like international one.
Eh, why do we do the distinction between the local Red Cross and the International Red Cross?
It's a completely different organization.
What?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm
I
sorry, I
seriously,
didn't know. Huh.
the IFRC is a very like a completely different organization than like Lebanese Red Cross Crescent, like Syrian Red Crescent. Like yeah, it's a completely different
Okay,
entity.
okay.
Yeah, like yeah, fundraising doesn't like go yeah, you know. So
The things we learn on the way.
yeah. So I say like yeah, I think it's like clear the call to action. Unless explicitly asked, no like usually people are not really in lookout for talent. Um and then and then yeah, and then giving like money is probably the best
The
way
best.
to impact, although it might not be as exciting for people who are very willing to help. Um, but then like just the reality is that's what like will go the farthest. And then to give money, like best is that to give money directly to the local organization, like
Mhm.
in the country, like on the ground. If you are too lazy to do the research and then just like give it to Red Cross
Okay.
Crescent, like
The
in the
local,
country.
the local.
Like Lebanese Red Crescent like Cross does amazing work. Um, yeah, for example. So that's like I think that's like pretty clear call to action.
Okay, okay. Oh, I'm think I'm running out of questions. Is there some advice that you would like to give to our speakers? And I think mostly in terms of personal choice, because let me tell you that I think the work that you do is admirable, and I'm sure there is a lot of many reasons why not to do it, but you're still doing it, and that's amazing. Do you want to share something with the audience that might be hesitating what to do with their lives, perhaps? I think that's a very hard question, but I
Yeah,
think it's also very hard to find
very,
an example like yours. So could you tell us something?
it's a very difficult
I
question.
know.
I by no means say that I figured out my life either. Like I haven't. Yeah. Um yeah. But then again, like for me, just like going with that like expectation, like that I'm never going to figure this out.
Well, that's a relief because some
Yeah,
people
like
worry if, oh, I haven't found it yet. And no, well, nobody found it.
yeah, like I think that's really that helps me, like as in for my mental health.
Mhm,
You know, like yeah, going with that expectation. And then yeah, um maybe just like one advice is that if I were to just like look back how things happened and all that, um I never sort of like imagined that I would be doing this work or be able to do this kind of work. But then it was all like made possible by kind of like strangers' kindness.
mhm,
Like yeah, like a random person who just like asked me, hey, like like yeah, like for example, like German national NGO thing, I just saw the like job this advert on like Facebook.
mhm,
Yeah, and then I was like, oh yeah, I can do it. And then I went and then like met with the person who was like recruiting. And even though I didn't have much like direct experience, but she really like valued that, yeah, that I came like and then yeah, and sort of like showed interest.
mhm.
Like, you know, sent like emails and like all that first.
Well,
So yeah,
uh-huh,
so I'm like, yeah, if it weren't for her kindness, like I wouldn't have sort of started. And then
mhm,
and then like all the other things, it just like continues and continues in that way. So I think my if it's an advice is that it's not really an advice, but it's just like for me, what helps is that have an expectation that I will not figure this out. So that means even if I haven't figured this out now, there's nothing wrong.
mhm,
Like it's a process. And then another is like, given that I haven't figured anything out, there, like there might be someone who I could help or who can help me. I just never know. Yeah, like I relied so much on strangers' kindness.
And I guess something that we want to learn from that is that it will be good if we are those strangers that are remembered as kind.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yes, we don't know.
It, it goes back and forth, right? Like yeah, and then we just like don't know. So yeah. So I guess that's it.
Okay, thank you so much for making time to join us. And
Mm-hmm.
as soon as this is online, I'll let you know. So let
Yeah,
me stop the
very much.
recording.